Welcome, or if you happen to be among the self-chosen few who have suffered through any of my other videos, welcome back to Making Sense of Jamaica. In this video I'm going to share my Ancestry DNA results with you. If you have not yet tested with Ancestry DNA, it may give you an idea of what to expect when you do. And if you have, maybe it'll be useful for comparison purposes. When I was just getting interested in genetic genealogy, I always found other people's DNA test results and what they had to say about them both interesting and motivating. So in 2022, I purchased an Ancestry DNA sample kit from Amazon. I've included a link in the description below. And I used a freight forwarder or courier to ship it from the United States to Jamaica. After I received it, I took my DNA sample and shipped it back to their US labs via FedEx. Now, it costed more to ship my DNA back to the United States than to purchase the sample kit, but I didn't trust Jamaica Post with my DNA, or anything valuable for that matter. So, although the information on Ancestry DNA and 23andMe are quite similar, 23andMe tends to be more health-oriented, and Ancestry DNA is more genealogy-focused. Personally, I find Ancestry's website both more understandable and useful and user-friendly. Ancestry DNA was a genealogy service that predated DNA testing. They try to sell a subscription service that includes various records such as births, deaths, marriages, census, military, immigration, newspapers, and there are a growing number of sources. I have not yet subscribed, and I will explain why at the end of the video. They also provide genealogy services. I think they started about $3,500 US. Eventually, I may hire a genealogist through Ancestry DNA, but I think I'll probably trace as much of my ancestry as I can and then hire a professional later on to both verify it and maybe trace it further. So on this page, the only thing I really want to point out is that I have over 1,000 fourth cousins or closer. So if you are from St. Elizabeth or from Jamaica in general, you will have lots of company if you join Ancestry DNA. So these are my origins. They look very much like 23andMe's. The percentage is almost exactly the same between, the European and African split. Roughly 58% of my ancestors either left or were pushed out of Europe, and 42% presumably pilfered from sub-Saharan African regions. Now, there are 4 details on here that I want to point out. I guess the first is Scotland. I have 14% Scottish ancestry, and my surname is actually Scottish. But what I find interesting is that it placed me in a very specific region of Scotland called Ross and Cromarty. I had never really heard of Ross and Cromarty before, but at some point I will probably research the connection between Ross and Cromarty and Jamaica to find out why people would have left the area to go to Jamaica. Now, I have two first cousins on my father's side that were not placed in this region, so this probably came from my mother's side. Next is Norway. I do not know of any Norwegian ancestry. When I first saw this, I assumed it was Vikings, and apparently the Vikings did settle in Ross and Cromarty, so maybe that's... when you look at the map, it's fairly close to Scotland and the United Kingdom. So Vikings would have been there. At first, I just assumed, okay, Vikings, these guys used to get on their big boats and forcibly spread their blue eyes wherever they went. But it may have been more civil movement between the two countries. It's hard to say. I'm pretty sure that whatever Norwegian ancestry I have, they did not travel directly to Jamaica. So that's the second thing. And now the third thing I want to show you is your DNA inherited from each parent. Of course, this is all estimated, but I do find the breakdown both interesting and it will probably be helpful to me at some point. Now, the last thing is, again, it put me in two communities. Now, in Jamaica, it put me in southwestern Middlesex. This is very much my father's side, although I don't know that we have any ancestors that lived in Manchester. To my knowledge, everybody is in St. Elizabeth, and a very specific part of St. Elizabeth at that, but that's what it says. Maybe I'll find out otherwise later. And then the other region, this is a much narrower region. This is very much my mother's side. This is just mind-blowing how accurate this is. So, next, we'll go to my matches. A few things I would like to show you here. First of all, it shows separation by parent, so it shows which matches are paternal and maternal, and if it doesn't know, it says, and there are a few of them are actually both. So that's very useful. The other thing I can say is I've noticed that between first and third cousins are very accurate. Fourth cousins you quite often don't know, so I can't really say for sure. But first and third cousins, from what I've seen, the people that I know are very accurate, just like 23andMe. The other thing is these public linked trees. These are very useful just to compare with some, sometimes with cousins you don't really know or you just know of. Very, very useful. You cannot see the whole tree unless you're a subscriber. At the level that I am at right now, this is useful. Or so far it's been useful. Next tab, by parent. So the most common names which can be found in your tree on both your mother's and father's side are here. These are the top 10 names. This is pretty accurate. There's not much else I can say about this. They're also very common names in the area that my ancestors came from. Notice I've got over 9,000 on my father's and 6,000 on my mother's, and then both sides there's only 67, which is really good. And then there's unassigned. So I guess both sides would say that my parents don't share much DNA. So now, by location, well, this is pretty much the same as 23andMe. I will say that Ancestry has, I'm estimating right now, they have about 25 million members versus about 14 million for 23andMe. So you've got more matches and you've got more and more far-flung places. I know I've got somebody in Portugal and Beirut and I think New Delhi and some other places. But this is very much the same, mostly Canada, USA, England, and then Jamaica and the Caymans. Next up, traits. Now the most useful of these traits, to me anyway, are the nutrients. It says I've got lower than average levels of vitamin A and B12. This is good to know. Now, a few months ago, this used to show what foods are high in the nutrients that I'm low in. But I guess they removed that. I mean, you can always look it up somewhere. Information's widely available. Now, as for all traits, according to this, I am an extrovert who loves to dance and can run really fast, which is far from the truth. I'm practically a reclusive introvert. You won't find me anywhere near a dance floor. And I don't think I've ever broken 15 seconds in the 100-meter. Now, in Jamaica, your average baby crawls out of the womb faster than that. than I've ever run the 100 meter. I think where this comes from is from these surveys. So distant relatives probably have these traits. So finally, I chose the cheapest Ancestry DNA kit, which includes origins, ethnicity, and DNA matches. I've included an Amazon link to it in the description below the video. I did not choose the more expensive kits because they had subscription services that I didn't expect to have time to use. Now, at the time, I wasn't sure how much genealogy information they would include. I have since learned that they do have a lot of Jamaican genealogy information, and it's growing. But there's also a very good free source of information out there, so it made sense to start with free. I may subscribe later. Now that free source, by the way, will be the topic of my next video, which hopefully will be my first useful video. So that's all for this video. I will have more videos on genetic genealogy and other Jamaican related topics on this channel, so you can subscribe if you're interested. And if you know somebody who might be interested in my videos, please share this with them. If you have any helpful comments, questions, or corrections, please leave them below. I will see you in my next video if you return. Bye for now.